Yeah.
So the ordered pairs along the edge of your unit circle, X is your cosine and Y is the sine. So your first number is cosine, second number is sine. And we're going to find all 6 for a 30-degree angle. So let's start off with the easiest two, which would be cosine of 30 degrees and sine of 30 degrees. Actually, I'm going to write these. So looking at the unit circle, what would you say the cosine for 30 degrees is? So this is what I'm looking at this point. So what is the cosine of a 30-degree angle? Root 3 over 2. Good. Because that's the x value. That's the x coordinate. And what's the sine of a 30-degree angle? 1/2. So those are the easiest 2 of the 6 because you just need to just look at the unit circle. You don't need to do anything else. Sine and cosine are already there for you. So if you look at this handout that I had you glue down, let's look at the sisters. The cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. These two are reciprocals. So to find the cosecant, you flip the sine. And to find secant, you flip cosine. So let's find cosecant and secant next. So cosecant, or we'll start off with secant. Secant of 30 degrees is 2 over root 3. Except we have a problem here. It's a red flag-ish. Yes. Okay. So what do we do though? How do we get rid of the square root in the denominator? Multiply by root 3. So you're going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3.
Okay, wait, where did you get to?
So that took the reciprocal of cosine. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So right here in this box, you might want to write, you already glued this down, but cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And you all know what I mean when I say reciprocal, right? That means you just flip it, okay? So I flipped the root 3 over 2. I got 2 over root 3. So this is going to give me 2 root 3 over the square root of 9, which is 2 root 3 over the square root of 3. So this is my cosine and this is my secant. Okay, it's pretty easy to find cosecant because I'm flipping sine. So cosecant of 30, you're going to flip the sine, which would be 2 over 1, or just a 2. So the easiest 2 to find are sine and cosine. And then the second tier easiest is secant and cosecant. And the one that requires the most work are the last 2, which is tangent and cotangent. And that's because you have to divide. So let me zoom in on this box that I had you glue in. Tangent equals y divided by x. So in other words, you have to divide the sine by the cosine. And for cosecant, you divide cosine by sine. So those require the most amount of work. So now let's do our tangent. It is. It is. We got people talking and stuff, but it's okay because we got 3-day weekend. Okay, so we have our tangent. So tangent of 30 degrees, I'm going to write this out the long way. All right, so tangent is sine of 30 divided by the cosine of 30. Okay. So the sine of a 30-degree angle is what? What did we say the sine of a 30-degree angle was? What did you say, Glody? 1/2, yep. No, you were right. I just didn't, I want to make sure I heard you. And we're going to divide that by the cosine of 30. And the cosine is √3/2. So who remembers how to divide fractions? Not cross, it's the
Subtract.
keep, change, flip. I don't know, maybe that's not how you all learned it, but you keep the first fraction. So this 1/2 is going to stay 1/2. And then we're going to change the division sign to a multiplication sign. And then we flip our second fraction. All right, so what do we notice we can do here? What's going to cancel out? The 2's, good. So when we multiply straight across, we have a 1 over the square root of 3. And again, we have that red light because we can't leave a square root in our denominator. So we have to multiply, right? And what do we have to multiply by? Square root of 3. I need a little bit more space. Hold on. Okay. So now we have the square root of 3 over 3. And that would be my tangent. So tangent and cotangent require a little bit of work. Keep in mind, this is our first example. It's going to get faster.
This is the beginning of the second.
Okay, so now our final one, our sixth one, is the cotangent of 30 degrees. And that's going to equal the cosine of 30 divided by the sine of 30. So what did we say the cosine of a 30-degree angle was? √3/2. And we're dividing that by the sine of a 30-degree angle, which is what? 1/2. So again, we're dividing fractions. So we have √3/2 times 2/1. The 2's cancel. And I'm left with just a √3. It's √3/1, or you could just say √3. But do we have a red light that we need to go back and fix? No. And that is it. We have made it through the first example of, and this is just the kind of a taste of what we're going to be doing for chapter 6 and 7. So does anyone have any questions about how we found all 6? Remember, the first two, sine and cosine, are just the order pairs. Secant and cosecant, you have to flip. Tangent and cotangent, you have to divide. And I don't know if I had you write that on here on this little handout that I had you glue down.
Yeah.
I did? Okay. All right, so now let's look at example 2. Go ahead and copy this down. Now we're going to do the same thing we just did, except with a 45 degree. So I'll give you a minute to copy that down. So we're going to find all 6. So if it says all 6, you're going to find all 6. And again, you don't have to write, you can abbreviate that, just trig. For a 45-degree angle this time. Yes, Karma?
When we start testing with this, are they gonna set the problems up like this, or do we need to memorize the unit circle and the trig number?
Yeah, you have to know this.
Okay.
And then you will be given a blank unit circle to fill out the day of the test.
Oh, okay.
Are we doing this as a group?
I was going to work through this one with you and then let you do this third one by yourself or with the group. Okay, so the 45-degree angles are actually a little bit easier because of the tangent and cotangent is easier to find. So let's talk about it. Let's go ahead and find our cosine of 45 degrees. And then we're going to find our sine of 45 degrees. Cosine and sine are the same for a 45-degree angle because it's an isosceles triangle. And remember, for an isosceles triangle, the legs are the congruent. So they're both going to be square root of 2 over 2. And also, because sine and cosine are the same, secant and cosecant will also be the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when we find the secant of 45 degrees, we're going to flip it. And again, we have our red light, so go ahead and rationalize that. Multiply by square root of 2.
So like on all like the isosceles triangles, would the cosine and sine be the same as secant?
And tangent and cotangent. Unless now when you get into quadrants 2 and 4, they have opposite signs. So you have to know that in quadrant 2,
Okay.
they're not both positive. And in quadrant 4, they're not both positive. So you have to pay attention to the sign, positive and negative. Okay, so when we multiply, we rationalize this, we get 2 root 2 over 2. And what else can I do here? What's going to cancel out? The 2's good. So my final answer is just the square root of 2. So when we do our cosecant of 45 degrees, we don't necessarily need to repeat those same steps because it's going to be the exact same answer again. We get that it is just the square root of 2. All right, so now let's do our last 2, and then you can see why this is also easier, the 45 degree. So the tangent of 45 is going to equal the sine divided by cosine. So that would be root 2 over 2 divided by root 2 over 2. And you're doing your keep, change, flip. And what do you notice is going to happen here when we do that?
Everything.
Yeah, everything cancels. So what do you think our answer is going to be? 1. Anytime you divide 2 numbers that are the same, you get 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. A million divided by a million is 1. The square root of 2 over 2 divided by the square root of 2 over 2 is 1. So what do you think our cotangent is going to be? It's going to be 1. Quadrant 1 is the easiest quadrant to work in because everything is positive. You don't have to worry about which ones are negative. And that is it. So we did all 6. So I'm going to give you example 3, and I want you to try to do this one on your own or with a partner. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then we'll work through it together. All right, any questions over example 2? We're only doing 2 more. We're going to stop at example 4. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this one down. Now we're moving to quadrant 2. So that means some of your answers will be positive and some of your answers will be negative. So I'm going to give you a few moments to work through it with a partner or by yourself, and then we'll talk about it together. Anybody still working? Okay. All right, start checking your answers against mine. See how many of them you agree with, and you can take a minute, correct your work if you don't agree, and if there's, and then I'll discuss them all, kind of go through them all. Notice that only 2 of my answers are positive. Only my sine and cosecant are positive. The other 4 are negative. So cosine and sine just come straight from the unit circle. And then to find my secant, I have to flip my cosine. Cosecant, I flip sine. Tangent and cotangent are the quotient properties because we have to divide. So I'll give you a minute to compare your answers. How many of you all got at least 4 right? That's good. Anybody get all 6 right? Okay, great. All right, any questions?
Is tan for X?
Is tan for X?
Yeah,
What you mean?
like tan, like the tan.
Tangent?
Yeah, tangent.
Tangent is tangent is sine divided by cosine, or y divided by x. So going back to this box, I don't know if you glued this down, if you were here that day. Did you get this?
I did, I just didn't.
Okay, yeah, so tangent is actually, no, I was just being serious. So tangent is y divided by x. So in other words, and you write this on that is sine divided by cosine. And the way I remember it, because I have to make little acronyms in my brain to remember the trig, is that cosine, for cotangent, cosine is on top. So it's cosine is on top. That is super thick. Cosine goes on top for cotangent. And sine goes on top.
For secant, is it fine if we have a negative on the bottom?
Yes. As long as you have a negative somewhere in the fraction. You can move it to the front, you can move it to the bottom, top, anywhere. Good question. So for homework 2, which is out of the book, this is the kinds of questions they're all going to be using your unit circle. Now it can be asked one other way, so we're going to do one more example and we'll end there. Example 4. So instead of it saying find it for a 30-degree angle or a 45-degree angle, it just says that we have an angle on the unit circle and they want us to find all 6. But they gave us the coordinate. Even though they did not tell us the angle, they told us the coordinate. And if they tell you the coordinate, you automatically have 2 of the 6. Because the first coordinate is cosine and sine. If you know cosine and sine, you can find all 6. So I'll give you a couple minutes. This is our last one. You're going to find the cosine of angle P. the sine of angle P, and then you're going to find the secant, the cosecant, and then lastly the tangent and the cotangent. All right, so take a couple minutes and answer those questions, and then we'll be done for today. Nope, just all 6 trig functions. Okay, go ahead and check your answers. See if your 6 answers. So they're all positive because we're in quadrant 1. And I know we're in quadrant 1 because cosine and sine are positive. And in quadrant 1, all 6 trig ratios or trig functions are positive. So you can go ahead and check. So for the cosine, you should have 1/2. For sine, √3/2. For secant, you should have 2. For cosecant, 2√3/3. For tangent, it's the square root of 3. And for cotangent, it's the square root of 3/3. All right, who got at least 4 right? Good. All right. Oh, let me put that on. All right, so that's it. Remember that homework 1 is open. You actually have 5 attempts. Somebody asked me to add a couple more, and I don't have a problem with that. When you are doing that assignment, as long as you're in the right quadrant, I'll go back and give you the point, because the Canvas assignment wants you to be really exact on where you click. When you actually take the test, I just personally care if you're in the right quadrant. There is one that is coming up wrong that is right. It is -10/9, and it's marking it wrong. I'm not sure how to fix that, so I'll go in and I will look at that during my prep period. So you have 5 attempts. As long as you get, I'm going to merge that into Skyward on Tuesday for full credit. After that, it goes down to 35 points as your highest. Unit Circle quiz on Tuesday. There are plenty of extras over there in the corner where the books are. Feel free to grab extra copies. And that's it. Have a good weekend.